Welcome to another Sigmalive Hangout. Today we're discussing with Ahmet Sozen, Professor of Political Science and International Relations, of course on the Cypriot problem. That is your specialization, right?
Kind of.
Kind of. Some would say that you're the guru of the topic.
Well, I mean, formally I was educated in political science, international relations with more emphasis on conflict resolution, negotiation processes, as well as foreign policy. But during the last almost 20 years, I've been writing a lot about Cyprus problem.
That's a full lifetime, 20 years.
Something like that.
Maybe that's why your name was so widely heard after Mustafa Akinci's selection for the position of the negotiator. Why did that fall through, though?
I don't know. Maybe people would find it fit, would find me as somebody suitable for the job. I think most of the reason is that people would think that since this person is so much experience on negotiations and whatnot, so people.
That's what everyone thought and heard, but then it fell through. Why was that?
I was also asked, to be very honest with you, I was also asked how would I feel about the position, and maybe that was kind of leaked or something. But of course, Mr. Akinci, the Turkish-Cypriot leader, made his own decision, and Mr. Nami is somebody who has been experienced on the negotiations. It was a political choice. So.
Was it a political choice, though? Because information suggests that it was Ankara's decision, I won't say to appoint Mr. Nami, but not to appoint you. How would you comment on that?
I don't think that there was any veto on me from Ankara. I can tell you this much.
What would you say on Turkish interventionism in Cypriot affairs?
Look, Turkey is a very important country for Cyprus, and in Cyprus, I'm not belittling Turkey's role in Cyprus. Turkey is the net creditor for the Turkish-Cypriot government. So by simply providing grants or providing finances for Turkish Cypriots, Turkey has a lot of influence in a lot of areas that the Turkish Cypriots consider domestic areas. But in fact, let me be very frank with you. In fact, part of the problem that created more Turkish intervention is due to the how can I put it?
The economic
the lack of
reasons.
Turkish Cypriots taking control, or I would say, to a certain extent, within quotation mark, laziness.
So they willingly left the keys of their car to Turkey.
In a way that, yeah, I mean, it is the easiest way, in a way. In order for a community to be the master of their house, it needs hard work. You have to have hard data. For example, do we have for example, Turkish Cypriots, a very well established Department of Statistics? No. Do you have the data, which is the reliable, let's say, objective data on which you can let's say, establish your governmental policies? We are lacking a lot of things as such. So in a way, there is a vacuum. And usually, if there is a vacuum, that vacuum is filled by something else.
Yeah.
But I also believe that it is also a reversible thing, that once Turkish Cypriots claim the competences or the functions that they left to Turkey, that they can take it.
But then will Turkey be willing to give that back?
Well, I mean, which Turkey are we talking about? We are talking about the bureaucrats who are here, the technical people, the so-called the financial help people. Once the Turkish Cypriots do their homework and they produce their own data, and they produce their own, let's say, recipes as to how to solve their economic, environmental, health-related, education-related problems, then of course they can take back whatever they left up in the air.
So it's just the time is right for the Turkish Cypriots to stand up to Turkey and say, we're going to do this alone, we're going to try and work a Cypriot solution out, and we really don't need any more motherland. We need a sister, but not a motherland.
You came to the very last dispute between Erdogan and Akıncı. Look, when you see relationship as infant land, motherland, I mean, how do you feel about your mother? You feel trust and, love and whatnot. So it's okay to leave the matters to the hands of the mother, in a way, right? So part of the problem comes from there. Whereas, people of my camp, let's say, are saying that, okay, Turkey is a special country. In a way, it is an ally of Turkish Cypriots, in a way. They speak the same language and whatnot. But at the same time, we find this relationship problematic because how come there is an infant and mother all the time?
When will the infant grow up?
When will the infant grow up, as Mr. Akıncı says? So in a way, people like myself believe that the relationship between Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots should be based on more of a politically equal footing, in a way. That it should be based on mutual respect and mutual responsibility rather than one being, let's say, dominant over the other one.
So going back to the negotiations, had you been appointed, what would be your line of action? How would you prioritize the issues? I mean, what would you say is the most difficult aspect of the Cypriot problem? What should we address first? How would you work?
Look, that's a very hypothetical question. And in fact, as we know, the current intercommunal negotiations is a process where the UN described as a leaders-led process. So it's not up to the negotiators to decide how it will shape up. It is up to the two leaders. But if you want to hear my own personal views as to how the whole peace process should be redesigned, I have been talking about that since the last 20-something years, and I can tell you that.
Please, a summary would be nice.
What I have in mind is the intercommunal negotiations, what we call track one negotiations, is important. I'm not really belittling its significance, but I've been saying that it is not enough by itself, that process should be complemented, should be supported by a parallel track of what I call a series of confidence building measures, which should also be independent of what is happening on the leaders level negotiations. As you know, from the very history of the negotiations, sometimes they might get suspended, stopped, whatever. What I have in mind is the confidence building measures track should continue even when the negotiations are suspended.
And that's a position you first articulated in the 90s.
Exactly. What we do not have in Cyprus, in a way, is this very valuable experience of cooperation between the two communities on the ground. For various different reasons, and I'm not going to get into the historical debates and whatnot, but in the last 40, 50 something years, depending on where you start your starting time, there is lack of concrete cooperation between the two communities, which is keeping this gap of trust alive. What we need to do is that we need to bridge that gap of trust between not just the leaders, but at the same time the two communities. We need these confidence building measures, not just nominally, but those confidence building measures that will change the very lives of average Greek and Turkish Cypriots.
Could you name three of those confidence building measures?
I think the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. I usually say that. We can, for example, start by uniting the whatever they call the the GSM operators, where we have common roaming. Today, the two leaders already, I think, announced that the electricity grid would be connected. That's good too. But why don't we, for example, transform the buffer zone, for example? The buffer, which means keeping the two sides separate, can be transformed into a common space where, for example, we can build, let's say, a solar power plant there, and the electricity it produces could be used by both sides. We can change the history textbooks. We can change all the signs, traffic signs, into 3 languages with the alphabet, for example. Open up the fenced area of Varosha for the two communities to cooperate. You know, as I said, the sky is the limit. There are a lot of things that can be done. Why don't we have, for example, a common university in the buffer zone? Or why don't we have 2 universities having a joint program or a joint institute, whatever, in the buffer zone? Can't we do that?
Do you think we can?
Of course. Well, if we cannot, how are we going to establish a federation? Because a federation, a federal state, is the peak of cooperation, is the climax of cooperation, is the, for example, mega cooperation in a way. And my problem is this: jumping from here, where we have almost no experience of cooperation, how do we jump from here to a bizonal, bicommunal federation, which is a mega cooperation? So that's why I'm saying that while the negotiations continue, let's have the two communities cooperate on things where they will be able to see that, hey, cooperation is possible, but it is also something which is desirable. Once people start perceiving this, that cooperation is something which is desirable, then their desire for a bizonal, bicommunal federation will be much more easily triggered.
Apart from the confidence building measures, you were the first a few years back that coined the term Belgianization of Cyprus.
Yeah.
If I'm saying it right. But
that's right.
What does that mean? I know Belgium has a few communities and they all try to work together, but it hasn't been the absolute best of models of governments.
Right.
How would that work in Cyprus?
I'm aware of that. And what I understand from Belgianization of Cyprus there is that just like Belgium, which has its own problems, the federation we are going to establish is not going to be problem-free. It's not going to be a rosy picture. Let me put it that way. That it is going to be a difficult to run federation. Let's be very realistic about it. But remember, several years ago, there was elections in Belgium, and more than 400 days, they were not able to establish the government.
They were headless, essentially.
Right? And I asked, what happened to Belgium? I think the question was very telling. What happened to Belgium?
Nothing really.
Nothing.
and
I said, look, isn't that great? The country was not flushed down the drain. The country was not destroyed, not divided and whatnot.
To your view, a Belgian model gives us the wiggle room to find our footing and where everything and everyone should stand.
This is a good start, in my opinion, for us. In fact, several years ago, again, this was almost 20 years ago, I wrote another paper where I suggested that instead of 2 zones, we should have 3 zones in Cyprus. And the current buffer zone and the Nicosia area, for example, could be a 3rd zone where you don't have any restrictions there, that people can live mixed and you can have all those federal institutions in the 3rd zone, right? But we should also, in a way, respect those people who do not want to mix, you know? I think that that's part of democracy. So when I said Belgianization of Cyprus, just like the Belgians, whenever they have differences, they don't kill one another. They don't hurt one another. unlike what we have done back in the past. So I said, isn't this great? We will have differences when we have a federal state in Cyprus, sure. But, you know, just like Belgians, I hope that we would be taking our lessons from the history, and we would find it and say that, look, we don't agree on this, but that's okay.
Thank you so very much for your time and your insight. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
And thank you for watching.